Hi, this is Casey Phillips, and welcome to my individual assignment for nursing as a team member. So, in order to understand the question I have posed here, which is what have I learned about myself, I used several self-assessment tools to help scratch the surface. So, for this assignment, I chose 5 tools to assess myself, my learning, and additionally, what I want to learn more about as I develop in the nursing profession. Each of the self-assessment tools were valuable and unique in their own way. They provided a range of insight that genuinely helped me to identify personal strengths, work and relationship preferences, and also overall aspects of myself that required deeper understanding and investigation. So before I get into each individual assessment, I'm going to do a very broad overview. So first, I used the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator as an overall personal assessment. And the purpose of this test is to indicate an individual's differing psychological preferences and thus attempts to indicate how we perceive the world around us and make decisions. Second, I used the Enneagram test as another overall personal assessment. And the purpose of the Enneagram test is to help explain to individuals why we do the things that we do. And this is done by linking together a bunch of characteristics, for example, thinking, feeling, instincts, and motivations, which are illustrated by 9 different Enneagram personality types. Third, I used the VARK questionnaire as a focused assessment. The purpose of the VARK questionnaire is to help individuals understand learning styles and further suggest strategies that will aid in learning based on the individual's indicated type. Fourth, I used the Global Emotional Intelligence Test as a focused assessment, and the purpose of this test is to identify an individual's level of emotional awareness by assessing 4 major competencies of emotional intelligence, including self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and relationship management. Finally, I used Riley's communication tool as another focused assessment, and the purpose of Riley's self-assessment tool for communication is to provide not only a quick check of personal skills, but also to serve as a tool to teach the basics of customer service. So the first test that I took was the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator on 16personalities.com. And I found this test to be easy to use, navigate, and understand. It took me about 20 minutes, so it took a little bit of time. It was a very detailed exam, but it provided very rich feedback regarding my indicated type. And based on my results, I am an INFP, or the mediator. And this truly confirmed what I already know about myself, and the accuracy was actually quite frightening. So more specifically, INFP stands for I am 94% introverted, N, I am 70% intuitive, F, I am 54% feeling, and P, I am 76 prospecting. So what does this tell me about me? Well, it tells me that I am a mediator and I'm an idealist. I'm always looking for the hint of good in every situation and every person, and I always search for ways to make things better. I am perceived by others as being calm, reserved, and often shy, but I have an inner flame and a passion that can truly shine through. This type is interesting. It only makes up 4% of the population and is also at risk for feeling misunderstood. But when these individuals find like-minded people to spend their time with, they feel deep joy and inspiration. And I really relate to this type as I am a companion seeker and find great depth in 1 or 2 very meaningful relationships. And I'm also a classical introvert, and sometimes my outward reservations can be mistaken for the inner world that I actually am taking on, which has a very significant drive and fire. So the Enneagram test is one that I am very familiar with and have always deeply related to my results. And although I have taken it in the past, I redid the Eclectic Energies online test and I actually received the exact same results. So although I was not surprised by my results, I think it speaks to the consistency of my personality and also to the consistency of the test. So according to the Enneagram test, I am a 5-wing 4. My primary type, the 5, is considered the investigator, and this is married with aspects of the type 4, or the individualist. And together this makes up Casey Phillips, me, which is the iconoclast, or the philosopher. So what does this say about me? Well, type 5s are comfortable at home and comfortable in their thought. They are introverted, and they are generally intelligent, thoughtful, and frequently become experts in the areas that capture their interest. This is also very accurate to my personality, as 5s are artistic and have creative inclinations and are often a bit eccentric and feel little need to alter their beliefs to accommodate majority opinion. They refuse to compromise their beliefs just to please others. 5s are very sensitive and sometimes feel disconnected from the world, much like my INFP Myers-Briggs test. So to compensate for their sensitivity, 5s sometimes adopt an attitude of careless indifference or intellectual arrogance, which has the unfortunate consequence of creating distance between themselves and others. This is a less positive aspect of my personality, but certainly one that I can relate to. Sensitivity and fears of inadequacy make 5s afraid of being overwhelmed by the demands of others or by the strength of their own emotions, and they sometimes deal with this by developing a minimalistic lifestyle and can become quite hermited. And as a 5-wing 4 specifically, I do, unlike a lot of classical 5s, recognize the strength of my emotions and am a little less cerebral than other 5s, but still have some degree of discomfort when it comes to the expression of my emotional states. My results on the VARK questionnaire were a little more eye-opening. I've always struggled to identify exactly what type of learner I am, so this result was quite helpful. I found this test to be informative, and I thought the information provided was very rich. However, I felt that the test itself was not as user-friendly as some of the questions were not necessarily relevant, and I almost had to suspend reality at times to understand exactly what was being asked, so I thought the questions were a little bit more challenging. But what does this say about me? Well, I am considered kinesthetic, and this preference uses experience and reality, even when they are shown as images and on screens. And it means really that I am a tactile learner, and true understanding for me takes place through physical activities rather than listening to a lecture, for example, or watching a demonstration. Also, as a kinesthetic type, some of my more notable preferences include applications before theories, demonstrations followed by applying what I have learned, talking about real things in my life. I prefer experiences of my own over the experiences of others. I prefer practical problems and problem-solving techniques, and I like to learn from people who are concrete, relevant, and down to earth. The emotional intelligence quiz, I felt this test was technically easy to use and was user-friendly, but much like the VARK test, many of the answers to the questions were not relatable. As a result, I fear for the accuracy and validity of my responses, and am therefore a little conflicted with the results of this test. However, based on my results, what does this test say on me? Well, the core of emotional intelligence is self-awareness, and this was one of my highest scores at 7 out of 10. So based on these results, accurate or not, this says a lot about my emotional intelligence. And this self-awareness is comprised of 3 competencies, including emotional self-awareness, accurate self-assessment, and self-confidence. Next, self-management, however, was one of my lowest scores at 5 out of 10, and this aspect of emotional intelligence is comprised of 5 competencies, including self-control, transparency, adaptability, achievement orientation, and initiative. Social awareness was my highest score at 8 out of 10. Social awareness is comprised of 3 competencies, including empathy, organizational awareness, and service orientation. And finally, relationship management was another of my lower scores at 5 out of 10, and this cluster is comprised of 7 competencies, including visionary leadership, developing others, influence, change catalyst, conflict management, building bonds, and teamwork and collaboration. The final test that I took was Riley's self-assessment tool for communication. This test was extremely easy to take. Unlike all of the others, this test took me about 3 minutes maximum. Each question was on a scale from 1 to 4, 1 being not skilled and 4 being very skilled. My total score was a 76, which indicated an average awareness of skills. In reviewing my lower scores, I noted lower numbers in communication-based questions and consistently higher scores in customer service type questions. And I think that this is a little bit of a personal discrepancy and was rather surprising, as Riley suggests that good communication is the foundation of optimal customer service. Now, I've always felt as if my communication skills were lacking because I'm more shy and introverted, but felt as though I provide great customer service, so I clearly have some self-exploration to do on this particular subject. I believe the insight provided with this information was extremely useful. Not only did I learn things about myself, but I was forced to address aspects of my person that I am indeed aware of and assess the effect that these characteristics have on my interpersonal, academic, and professional relationships. Now, it is abundantly clear that I am an introvert and am more comfortable in my head than socially. Being conscientious of this has helped me to think about how I come off to people and will help me build necessary communication skills to compensate for some of these barriers, both interpersonally and at school and in professional aspects of life. And I think this information is very useful. Some of the results certainly expose less favorable aspects of my personality, but it is critical to address these areas in order to become not only the best team player, but the best version of myself possible. As a nursing student, each assessment was extremely helpful, specifically the VARC test, which helped me to understand my kinesthetic learning style. And I'm now more aware of ways in which I can practice and study to better solidify content that will make me a better student and also a better nurse in the future. As a practicing nurse, understanding my strengths and limitations in terms of communication skills will be supremely beneficial interpersonally, not only with patients, but also as a team member. This information has helped me to become a better team member, as I now understand deeper aspects of myself that have really solidified my role in the group dynamic and what strengths and differences that I bring to the table. And as a follower and an INFP mediator, I am always looking for the good in people and the situation, and have become a better follower as I now believe that I emphasize the strength of my peers and trust their talents and skills. But the philosopher, the 5-wing 4, deeply analyzes and refines their contributions, and that is my contribution. And I'm still admittedly working on my abilities as a leader. I let my shyness and introversion get the best of me at times and need to continue to find my voice and my leadership skills. And each of the assessments deeply fits into the individual level, but the effect of the assessment subsequently breaches out to each of the pyramid levels, however, based on the results. For example, both overall personal assessments and focused assessments examine the individual, assessing individual characteristics and preferences, providing an explanation of behaviors or assessment of skills. But these individual behaviors and skills eventually do have an effect on the team, and then the unit, and then interdisciplinary, and then all the way trickling down into the society. And in conclusion, a major takeaway from this assignment is the importance of assessing one's character and strengths and differences to gain a deeper self-awareness, to further understand what you bring to the table and how you can improve barriers to effective communication and relationships. And I think the assessments I took covered a lot of bases, and I feel as though I have a very well-rounded look at myself based on the tests that I took. And I would be interested, however, to further explore barriers in my communication skills in order to learn how to communicate more effectively and assertively. And I think it would definitely be interesting to come back, especially after working as a professional nurse for a few years, to see how these skills have developed, and I certainly plan to do this in the future. Finally, I would absolutely recommend these tools to colleagues, especially the Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, and VARK assessments. I believe these assessment tools offered me the most profound results. So thank you very much for listening to my final project.